Good afternoon and welcome to IBA News this Tuesday the 26th of July. I'm Eilan Aslan-Levy joining you live from Jerusalem. In a short time from now, a state memorial ceremony marking 2 years since Operation Protective Edge will take place at Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, honouring the war's fallen soldiers and civilians. This as a group of bereaved parents of soldiers who fell in the 2014 operation called on the government to establish an independent state committee to investigate the military offensive. In a letter sent to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Reuven Rivlin, Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman and Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein, the families charged that politics had prevented the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, tasked with probing the operation, from publishing its findings. They urged the government to establish an independent body to probe the events, saying the Israeli leadership is obligated to investigate every incident of the war, the actions of those in charge at the time, and the decision-making process. The letter went on to say that the families believe the inquiry should be transparent, guaranteeing their basic rights to know. 67 Israeli soldiers and 5 civilians were killed on the Israeli side in the 50-day conflict, with dozens injured. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called on Israel's Arab citizens to thrive in droves yesterday in a recorded video on his Facebook page. In identical Hebrew and English videos subtitled in Arabic, Netanyahu directly appealed to the Arab public to play an even greater role in Israel's success. Netanyahu apologized again for upset caused by remarks made before the last elections when he said Arab voters were going to the polls in droves, saying he was referring to a specific political party but understood people's offense.
Dear Arab citizens of Israel, Muwatinuna al-Arab al-Aiza. Before my election, I said Arab voters were going to the polls in droves. I was referring to a specific political party, but many people were understandably offended. I apologize for how my comment was misunderstood. But today I want to go further. Today I'm asking Arab citizens in Israel to take part in our society in droves, work in droves, study in droves, thrive in droves. Israel is strong because of our diversity and pluralism, not in spite of it.
It is unclear what prompted Netanyahu to make this appeal all of a sudden, but criticism from Arab members of Knesset was swift. Ahmed Tibi of the Joint List called Netanyahu's appeal a spin, saying the country's Arab population is exposed to racism and hatred. He also mocked Netanyahu, accusing him of mispronouncing dear citizens in Arabic and accidentally calling them goats instead. Ayman Uday, head of the Joint List, called Netanyahu's speech sheer hypocrisy. Prime Minister Netanyahu has also claimed Israel is winning the war against the boycott movement and said he plans to appoint ministers to fill the cabinet posts he is currently holding. Joining me now with all the details is IBA's political correspondent, Kalev Ben-David. Kalev.
Thanks, Alon. The movement to boycott, divest from, and sanction Israel, also known as BDS, has been defeated, according to Prime Minister Netanyahu. He made the claim in an open session Monday of the Knesset State Controllers Committee, in response to a report that criticized the Prime Minister for not having appointed a foreign minister since the 2015 election. Netanyahu denied claims that Israel is becoming more isolated in the international arena, pointing to new or improved foreign relations over the past year with several countries. He praised the Foreign Ministry for its efforts to combat BDS and cited new efforts abroad to delegitimize the movement, while adding that he does not believe all foreign affairs need to be handled by the ministry. The Prime Minister said he does not plan to indefinitely serve as acting foreign minister, nor keep holding on to 3 other ministries, communications, economy, and regional affairs, that still lack a full-time minister, though he did not specify when he would start filling those posts. The Prime Minister also revealed that Israel is in the final stages of negotiating a new military aid package from the U.S., and his security advisor, Yaakov Nagel, will visit Washington next week in an effort to seal that deal. Alon?
Back to this claim the Prime Minister made that Israel has successfully defeated BDS. What does he know that we don't?
Look, there is true that there have been some successes, especially in the United States, new laws in certain states to basically outlaw the BDS movement. But in Europe, that's not the case. The Prime Minister, obviously exaggerating a little. He's stung by criticism that he's not appointed a foreign minister and was trying to defend his record. And watching him yesterday, you got the feeling he seems to feel that him serving part-time as a foreign minister is more effective than having someone else in the cabinet doing full-time, and maybe he has a point.
Premature triumphalism, then. Back to the Prime Minister's appeal to the Arab public last night. Better late than never to try to mend bridges, but this appeal seemed to come rather out of the blue. Would it be cynical of political observers to read something into the timing?
No, I think the timing was deliberate because, just last week the Knesset passed this law which will make it easier to sanction individual Knesset members. The Arab community feels that law will specifically target certain Arab Knesset members, and there's been also a lot of bad press internationally about certain other steps the Prime Minister has taken. So I think a key here is that he made the appeal also in English. He's obviously trying to make a broader social media impact, perhaps at the encouragement of his new spokesman, David Keyes, his international press spokesman, who has a record background in social media. So I think largely this was aimed for the international audience.
But as well to reassure Arab citizens within Israel.
I think he's trying to, in fact, try to drive a wedge or a distinction between more extreme Israeli Arab politicians, Knesset members, and what he maybe will like to see as the more mainstream Arab community. But we'll see how they respond to it.
Thank you very much, Kalev.
Thanks.
Non-Orthodox converts to Judaism will no longer be able to use state-run mikvaot or ritual baths during their conversion process after the Knesset passed the controversial Mikve Law in its final readings 41 to 35. The law was the initiative of MK Moshe Gafni of the ultra-Orthodox United Torah Judaism Party, who explicitly said it aims to prevent Reform Jews from getting legitimization through the back door. The legislation circumvents a High Court ruling from February which judged that barring non-Orthodox converts is discriminatory and thus illegal. The Reform and Conservative movements had been promised that several new mikvaot would be built for them, but this commitment was not enshrined in law, and the Finance Ministry has not transferred the necessary money to the Jewish Agency for Construction. Yesh Atid MK Eliza Levi slammed the law as non-Jewish, illegal and non-democratic, and Likud MK Yehuda Glick held a half-minute of silence at the plenum in protest. Rabbi Uri Regev, chairman of the Chidush NGO for Religious Freedom, said the legislation undermines the rule of law and is a slap in the face of diaspora Jewry. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is planning to sue the British government over the 1917 Balfour Declaration, which paved the way for the creation of the State of Israel, prompting criticism from Israel's officials. IBA's Margaret Dudkiewicz has the story.
Writing on his Twitter account, Public Security Minister Erdan declared Abbas's sole intention is focused on delegitimizing the Jewish state. Erdan said he won't be surprised if Abbas's next step is to sue France for the Sykes-Picot Agreement, the secret understanding reached between Britain and France in 1916, that gave Britain control of areas between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River, as well as areas around Haifa and Akka. Details of Abbas's intentions were revealed by his foreign minister Riyad Malki at the Arab League summit in Mauritania earlier this week. Malki, who spoke on behalf of Abbas, called on the ministers of Arab countries present to assist in preparing the lawsuit, saying Britain is to blame for all of Israel's crimes committed since the end of the British Mandate in 1948. The summit, that took place Monday in a tent in Mauritania's capital city, was concluded a day earlier due to the absence of heavyweight leaders from Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Jordan. There was also criticism among those who attended the summit over the conditions it was held, with some noting that Arab League members usually convene in five-star hotels. Margaret Dudkiewicz, IBA News.
Israeli aircraft struck targets inside Syria hours after a mortar shell exploded on the Israeli side of the Golan Heights. There were no reports of damage or injury. The army said the stray fire appears to be the result of battles between the Syrian army and rebel forces, but emphasized it holds the Syrian regime responsible for its territory and will not tolerate any attempt to harm the sovereignty and security of Israel and its residents. The official Syrian news agency Sana said 2 Israeli missiles hit a residential building in Al-Bat, located near Quneitra, on the border with Israel, confirming there were no injuries there either. In a massive crackdown overnight, police arrested dozens of people linked to La Familia, supporters of the Beitar Jerusalem football club. Over 50 members of the group were arrested on suspicion of selling weapons, engaging in various acts of violence, and smuggling firecrackers and flammable material into football fields. During the raid, police seized 20 stun grenades, a kilogram of explosive material, and nearly 24 gas, smoke, and improvised grenades, as well as some 30 flares. Over 400 policemen were involved in the overnight crackdown, including 1 undercover agent who infiltrated the group for over 6 months. Beitar Jerusalem's management claims it has no connection to the arrests, an operation conducted solely by police. The Democratic Party National Convention kicked off in Philadelphia last night amid serious internal strife. Back to IBA's Caleb Ben-David with this report.
The Democratic Party gathered in Philadelphia seeking to unify behind nominee Hillary Clinton, but that proved to be a tough task just days after the Democratic National Committee head Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign when WikiLeaks exposed emails from DNC officials looking to help Clinton by undermining her rival, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. As Sanders supporters protested outside the convention hall, one of his celebrity backers, Jewish comedian Sarah Silverman, called for Democrats to now throw their full support behind Clinton.
I will vote for Hillary with gusto, as I continue to be inspired and moved to action by the ideals set forth by Bernie, who will never stop fighting for us. I am proud to be a part of Bernie's movement, and a vital part of that movement is making absolutely sure that Hillary Clinton is our next president of the United States. Booyah, Baba Booey.
Sanders himself took to the podium in an effort to get his disgruntled backers to switch their allegiance to Clinton.
I have known Hillary Clinton for 25 years. I remember her, as you do, as a great First Lady who broke precedent in terms of the role that a First Lady was supposed to play as she helped lead the fight for universal health care. I served with her in the United States Senate and know her as a fierce advocate for the rights of children, for women, and for the disabled. Hillary Clinton will make an outstanding president, and I am proud to stand with her tonight.
But Clinton's biggest boost of the night came from First Lady Michelle Obama, who stirred the crowd with her unqualified support for her husband's former political rival.
In this election and every election is about who will have the power to shape our children for the next 4 or 8 years of their lives. And I am here tonight because in this election, there is only one person who I trust with that responsibility. Only one person who I believe is truly qualified to be President of the United States, and that is our friend Hillary Clinton.
With recent polls showing Republican candidate Donald Trump pulling even or ahead of the Democratic nominee in the presidential race, Hillary Clinton will have to hope that in the next few days, her fractious party finally comes together to support her bid for the White House. This is Caleb Ben-David for IBA News.
Joining me now from our Tel Aviv studio to discuss the Democratic Convention is Yoel Patil, Israel Director of J Street. Yoel, welcome.
Good afternoon, Elon.
It's not looking good for the Democrats, is it?
Well, I mean, I'm sure the Democrats have hoped to open their convention more quietly than the stories around mainly the email accounts as well as the results.
Both email scandals now.
But it seemed that by the end of the evening they've pulled through.
All the same, we have Trump pulling ahead of Hillary Clinton in several polls.
It's true, although I've just seen a latest poll from this morning that showed that she's leading. So I think the polls are very unstable, and maybe we can't predict much at this moment from the polls. We'll have to see what happens, A, after this convention, and B, once we have the televised.
Okay, well, let's move over to the local angle of this story. Between Trump and Clinton, which candidate of the two can we expect to be the more pro-Israel, so to speak?
Well, the answer is, first of all, how do you define pro-Israel? My definition of pro-Israel is somebody that stands side by side with Israel, that takes care of its, backs the security aid and takes care of Israel being a Jewish and democratic state for future generations. That means reaching a Palestinian-Israeli peace agreement and separating into two states. In that sense, Clinton is much more a pro-Israel candidate than Donald Trump, who talks about perhaps stopping aid, who wants to have less responsibilities in terms of the U.S. being a security power in the world. And I'm I feel less safe having him as president.
Trump has certainly made some comments that have concerned people in terms of his commitment to NATO and military aid, but the Republicans just adopted a new platform saying they oppose any measures intended to impose an agreement or dictate borders or other terms on Israel. What could possibly be more pro-Israel than giving us unqualified support?
Right. The Republicans basically, stepped back of bipartisan consensus that has been around for almost 40 years that says that protecting Israeli interests for the long terms has to do with support for a two-state solution. The first president that actually supported publicly the establishment of a Palestinian state was a Republican president. So the Republicans are stepping back in an effort probably to please a very small minority of Israeli supporters that are more in line with...
But all the same, if the Republican Party says that it interprets pro-Israel in terms of giving Israel any support it wants, and you say that Hillary Clinton would be the pro-Israel candidate because she would push Israel towards a two-state solution, are you saying you see Clinton as the pro-Israel candidate because she would push our government to do something that's in its own best interest, even if it wouldn't do so otherwise?
It's more or less, yes, although I do see, American presidents working side by side with Israel to promote Israeli interests and American interests. So it's never really, against what Israeli interests are. And our current prime minister did say several times that he's supportive of the two-state solution. So I don't see it as something which is against, Israeli government or interests.
Okay, well, looking at trends within the Democratic Party, Senator Sanders recently called himself, and I quote, 100% pro-Israel in the sense of Israel's right to exist. Is that enough to qualify as pro-Israel for a politician in J Street's mind?
Well, I think you're asking a good question. I think we're at a moment where there is a question mark around what does it mean to be pro-Israel. I think the most important thing is to protect Israel and to support Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. That future runs through a peace agreement with the Palestinians that would ensure both that Israel will stay a democracy and will have a Jewish majority. Whether what Sanders says is enough, I believe so, because
that it's enough to say pro-Israel is just Israel's right to supporting Israel's right to exist. That's all pro-Israel means?
Supporting Israel's rights to exist in the way Israel is defined.
Okay, Yoel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Turning to France, where another terror attack occurred this morning with the Islamic State claiming responsibility in the last hour or so. 2 assailants armed with knives seized hostages in a church near the city of Rouen in Normandy. The men slit the throat of the 84-year-old priest and critically injured another hostage before they were shot dead by police. French police officials say they are treating the incident as a terror attack. The men took 5 hostages in the church, the priest, 2 nuns and 2 worshippers. After an hour and a half, special forces stormed the church, shot the attackers and discovered the priest's body on the church floor. Police say the attackers shouted Daesh, ISIS before attacking, and a local resident was quoted as saying they also shouted Allahu Akbar. A Vatican spokesman denounced the attack as a barbaric killing in a sacred place. Police in India's northern Himachal Pradesh region have arrested 2 men suspected of raping a 25-year-old female Israeli tourist in the popular resort town of Manali. The woman filed a complaint with police saying she was attacked and gang-raped by a group of 6 men with whom she hitched a ride. She said she flagged down what she thought was a taxi and asked to be taken to a nearby town. The woman was taken to hospital for treatment after the incident. An official at the Israeli embassy in New Delhi said they were in touch with the victim and local authorities, stressing that the woman did not want the case to be publicized. Police said the victim managed to take a photograph of the vehicle from behind before it fled the scene, which helped authorities track down 2 of the suspects. A search operation to locate the 4 others is still underway. Closer to home, traffic police were flabbergasted to spot 2 Bedouin toddlers driving an electric-powered ATV on Highway 60 between the Shoket Junction and Beersheva. Police on a routine patrol saw the 2 tots, both of whom are said to be under 4 years old, careering away on the highway, and pulled them over. The police safeguarded the 2 until their father was tracked down and detained for questioning. Authorities called on parents to protect their children, emphasizing the road is not a playground. Now to an amazing archaeological find in the north of the country, where the base of a 4,000-year-old life-sized Egyptian statue has been uncovered during excavations at Tel Hazor, north of the Sea of Galilee. An American volunteer detected the toes in the dirt during excavations, and it turned out to be a large limestone fragment of a foot of a crouching male figure. It also contained a few lines of hieroglyphic script. Archaeologists believe the statue dates from the 19th century, before the Common Era, and may have been a gift to the city from an Egyptian ruler. It was apparently deliberately smashed, probably during a conquest of Hazor 3,300 years ago. Archaeologists hope to find the rest of the statue's body during the rest of the summer's digs. In arts and entertainment news, the 4-day Tel Aviv Short Play Festival gets underway tonight at the Suzanne Dalal Center. The Stage, which is an Anglo community theatre group, will be performing 7 plays in English in 90 minutes. Rebecca Flanders, the artistic director of the festival, told IBA's Aria O'Sullivan there will be something for everybody.
This short play festival is completely in English. It is being produced by The Stage in Tel Aviv, which is the premier English-speaking theater company here. It is 7 short comedic plays that will be performed in 90 minutes.
Are these excerpts from plays, or a short play with a beginning and an end?
These are actually not excerpts. These are each their own play. There are 7 plays by 7 different playwrights.
So what's the genre? Is it comedy? Is it farce?
So all our plays are comedy. They run a gamut of different genres, from realist to absurdist. The idea is a little bit of something for everybody.
And what about the actors and the directors? Are they Israeli? Are they immigrants?
The actors and directors are a mix. A good deal are expats, Americans, Brits, Australians. We also have, I would say, approximately a third who are Israelis. So although our theater company is in English, we are not exclusive. We are for everybody and anybody in Tel Aviv. And I believe 3 of our directors are Israeli directors.
So Rebecca, tell us some details. When and where is it?
So the play opens tomorrow evening at Susan Dalal at 8 o'clock. We have performances tomorrow night, Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, Friday at 1 o'clock, and Saturday night at 9 o'clock, all at Susan Dalal.
So Rebecca, what's the state of English language theater in Israel?
Well, I've only been here about a year, but from what I can see, the Stage is it for Tel Aviv. I know there are a few other English-speaking theaters in Israel, but the Stage seems to really be fulfilling a need in the market. The Stage is really wonderful because they put on quite professional productions, but they are a community theater, so they involve everybody, and they are in English, and they're really upping the standard of what we have here in Tel Aviv.
Break a leg. In finance, the shekel is mixed in foreign trading, while shares are also mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, and the Bank of Israel has decided to maintain the base interest rate at 0.1%. In weather, tomorrow will still be unseasonably hot, despite a small fall in temperatures, which will drop again slightly on Thursday. And that's all for today. Laura Cornfield will be back again tomorrow with all the latest as usual. I'm Elon Aslan Levy, wishing you a good evening live from Jerusalem.